والحمد لله رب العالمين تقبل الله منكم.
Jazakumullahu khairan al-Fadil Ustad. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today to launch a Malik Bennabi Reader, a compilation of key writings by Malik Bennabi, a prominent Algerian thinker known for his analysis of civilizational decline and revival. This book delves into his concept of colonizability and his profound insights on culture, thought, and societal transformation, providing a concise introduction to his intellectual legacy in Islamic thought and post-colonial studies. If you'd like to get a copy of the book, it is available at the booth right outside this hall. For today only, we are offering a special discounted price of 175 ringgit Malaysia, reduced from the original of 220 ringgit. So please do not miss this opportunity. Moving on, it is now my pleasure to invite Professor Dr. Muhammad El-Tahir Al-Masawi, the author of a Malik Bennabi Reader book, to deliver his speech.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على محمد خاتم النبيين، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. ينبغي أماد برحرمات Excellency Datuk Seri Anwar bin Ibrahim, Prime Minister of Malaysia, Excellencies, honorable guests, ministers, diplomats, people of the media, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. When I was asked to prepare a speech for this occasion, my mind wandered in several directions in search of something that could be the subject of my speech. Should I introduce the audience to the personality of Malik Bennabi, talk about his intellectual journey and the works he produced in various fields? Should I summarize his main theories and basic concepts? Should I limit my talk to the contents of the book that is going to be launched today? Should I explain the purpose of this book and the approach I followed in preparing it? After much wondering between these and other questions, I decided to do none of these things, to be a little bit unconventional, believing that Malik Bennabi's readers in general and those who will be reading this book particularly will come up with answers to these questions and maybe others which I did not think of. Therefore, I decided to tell you a story. I'm not a good storyteller, but this story specifically serves as a background to the event which we are celebrating today. So this story goes like this. When the book was nearing its completion, somewhere in August 2023, I thought about having a foreword for it by someone who is familiar with Bennabi's life and thought. I came up with a list. People from different countries, from Sudan, from Malaysia, from Algeria, from US. And I tried to set up for myself certain criteria by which I can go through a process of elimination. Not on personal account, but just to see who will be time-wise and cognition-wise with Malik Bennabi be able to do this job for me. The first step in the selection was to eliminate those who did not know English, because their foreword should be about the work that is going to be launched today, as they may not be able to look into it critically and assess it in the proper manner. The process of elimination continued until only 2 names remained. I will cite them by just the initials. AI and OB, both from Malaysia. The consideration that favored them over others was that they were behind the World First International Symposium on Malik Bennabi's thought in 1992. These 2 people are His Excellency Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, at that time I think he was Finance Minister, and Professor Osman Bakar, who was at that time at the University of Malaya. So in October 23, I contacted Prof. Osman, who was, and I think he's still holder of the Al-Ghazali Chair of Epistemology and Civilizational Studies, to write the foreword for the book. And alhamdulillah, he agreed immediately without any hesitation. And I sent him the manuscript somewhere in November. Then came a surprise. On the morning of Tuesday, 12 December 23, a bus took me and a Malaysian good friend from Hamad International Airport to the hotel, where we were attending a conference on human dignity. So while in the bus, he asked me what was my latest work or the thing that I was busy with. I just mentioned to him the book on Malik Bennabi. So immediately he told me, why don't you have the Prime Minister of Malaysia to write a foreword for it? I told him this is going to be difficult. He is too busy with the burdens, and I don't want to add another burden to him. After we reached the hotel and we relaxed a little bit, about 2 or 3 hours later, I received a message from Prof. Osman Bakar, informing me that he informed the Prime Minister about the book and that he is very eager to launch it. And then he asked me a question, would you mind the Prime Minister writing the foreword? Oh my God, that's a very big surprise. I told him, I don't mind. If he has the leisure to do that, that will be great. And here we are. I did not plan for it. I did not trouble the Prime Minister by sending any message requesting him to do that. And I ended up with 2 important pieces. The foreword by Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim and the preface by Professor Osman Bakar. So while I did not seek or plan for that to happen, let me tell you my feeling. I see in its occurrence, the way it happened, a thread of divine wisdom that brought us all together to meet at a rich and blessed banquet of thought and wisdom and remembrance in the presence of one of the brilliant minds and intellectual luminaries of the Muslim Ummah in particular, and the world at large. I can count him as a world-class thinker. Who was worried about the future of the Ummah, about the destiny of humanity, and who looked forward to its aspirations. And he was trying to suggest ways and paths out of the crisis humanity has been going through. Therefore, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude and thanks to Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, who is honoring us today, and me especially, Prime Minister of Malaysia, to Professor Osman Bakar, who has really been a source of inspiration and encouragement for me throughout, and to all of you, honorable attendees, respected audience, for you have brightened this occasion with your presence and gratified our hearts with your appreciation. May Allah, all merciful, protect you all and grant you peace and enable you to achieve your best intentions. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now with great honor I invite Yang Berbahagia Datuk Professor Emeritus Dr. Usman bin Bakar, the Rector of International Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM, to deliver his welcoming speech.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon. On behalf of IIUM, I would like to welcome all of you to this afternoon's important event, which is to launch a remarkable book on Malik Bennabi, as well as to launch the formation of the International Institute of Future Studies, IIFS, at this university. A very special welcome to Yang Amat Berhormat, the Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, for your generosity in taking time off from your extremely busy schedule. I understand you have to excuse yourself from the President of Uzbekistan and to be back with his guest. It is a great honor for IIUM to welcome and receive your presence today as Prime Minister at ISTAC, our Kuala Lumpur branch campus, in conjunction with the launching of Professor Tahir Masawi's Malik Bennabi reader and IIFS. We are proud to host this double launching, and we hope Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri is even more pleased with it. After all, you know that Malik Bennabi is dear to your heart and your intellect. And we also know that future studies is a subject that fascinates you. Thank you for announcing your address for announcing in Seoul in October last year, during your address at Seoul National University, which is South Korea's #1 university, that an Institute of Future Studies would be established at IIUN. Thank you very much. But for Professor Masawi and me personally, today's launching of the book on Bennabi possesses an additional significance. Professor Tahir Masawi has alluded to it. If I may share this information with the audience, Yang Berhormat, this is the second time that a Bennabi event has brought Dr. Masawi and me together at an academic function with Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Anwar. The first was over 33 years ago, September 1991. In September 1991, University Malaya hosted the international seminar on Malik Bennabi, which is co-organized with Institute for Policy Studies, which was patronized by Yang Berhormat. The seminar was officially opened by Datuk Seri Anwar. He was then the Minister of Finance, and less than 2 years later, he became the Deputy Prime Minister. Professor Masawi and I met Datuk Seri Anwar face to face during the opening ceremony. It was the first time that I met Professor Masawi. He was then a young MA student at IIUN, doing research on Bennabi. He presented a paper titled Malik Bennabi's Contribution to Islamic Social History. As for me, I was an associate professor and the deputy dean at the Faculty of Science, University Malaya. I had organized the seminar. The seminar turned out to be a historic event. It was the first international conference ever held in the Muslim world to focus exclusively on the thoughts of Malik Bennabi. Several prominent scholars spoke at the seminar, including Abdullah Nasif, Abdul Sabur Sahin, Asma Rashid, Zafar Isa Ansari, and Muhammad Kamal Hassan. Ammar Talbi, an intellectual collaborator of Bennabi, or what we call Malik Bennabi's sparring intellectual partner. He could not attend the seminar, but he did send his paper, which was read by Abdul Rahman Doi. Datuk Seri Anwar delivered the keynote address and officiated the seminar. The seminar was a historic gathering of prominent Muslim scholars and public figures from various parts of the world to honor the scholarship of Bennabi. The seminar helped disseminate and popularize his creative thought to a wider audience. Datuk Seri Anwar played a key role in the success of the seminar. Today, 33 years later, it's the second time that Professor Masawi and I are together at a Bennabi event with Datuk Seri Anwar, which is now. But this time, Datuk Seri Anwar is the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Professor Masawi is now a senior professor and a leading scholar of Bennabi's thought in the world. As for me, LS, I am now the 7th rector of IIUN. Thanks to the Prime Minister and Minister of Education, Datuk Seri Diraja Dr. Zamri. Naturally, Professor Masawi and I are extremely glad that we are blessed with this great opportunity to again share the same platform with Datuk Seri Anwar at an event revealing and honoring the thoughts of Bennabi. This is what I call destiny. I believe that the new and more favorable circumstances in which we find ourselves today will inspire a new and more enlightened chapter in the reception of Bennabi's thought, not only in Malaysia, but also in ASEAN and in the rest of the world. And of course, as we all know, our Prime Minister continue to quote, refer to Malik Bennabi. Thank you. Inshallah, I believe we have a new chapter. Today, the IIM campus community joins me in congratulating our senior professor, Dr. Tahir Musawi, for having published an excellent work on Bennabi. Through this work, Professor Musawi sends a good scholarly example to the younger generation of academics. The message his work is sending to them is this: don't stop writing and publishing after becoming professor. Instead, let us pursue it, not because we believe in the cliche, publish or perish, but because we believe it is a nobler intellectual tradition that was the case, for example, with its Islamic written tradition, with its written knowledge and scholarly tradition that has survived for hundreds of years until now. Professor Musawi undertook the laborious task of collecting and selecting a large volume of Bennabi's essays in French and Arabic, and then editing and translating them into English. For Professor Musawi, this laborious task bore sweet fruits, which we see today in the form of 2 large volumes of work titled on Malik Bennabi Reader that will shortly be launched by our Prime Minister. As far as we know, and according to Professor Musawi himself, no other English translation of Bennabi's works on such a large scale and on such a comprehensive character has previously appeared in print. Thank you. Congratulations. Let me now make a brief reference to the establishment of IIFS. The birth of IIFS at IIN could not have come at a more opportune time than now. Under my rectorship since October last year, IIN, with the help of its key agencies, is in the process of articulating and popularizing its new vision, namely Tawhidic epistemology, which champions the unity of knowledge and of all the sciences. At the practical level, IIN is pushing its new mission of ummatic excellence, khairul ummah, to empower its holistic development goals for the progressive betterment of the campus community. It is our belief that future studies would and could play a significant role in helping to enlighten Tawhidic epistemology and empower its mission of ummatic excellence. Conversely, we believe that Tawhidic epistemology can help guide and shape the development of future studies. If I may stress on this point, Tawhidic epistemology is relevant, indeed important, as guide to the study of the past, study of the present, and the study of the future. With reference to Islam and its civilization, IIN has been very good at studying the past, gradually becoming better at studying the present, including AI-related issues, but yet to show its talent and capability in studying the futures. It is our hope that IIS will help IIN excel in future studies with the strong support of Yang Amat Berhormat the Prime Minister. In conclusion, I would like to once again thank Yang Amat Berhormat the Prime Minister for officially launching a Malik Bennabi Reader and IIS, and all our distinguished guests for your gracious presence. A special thanks to Professor Mayo, our guest speaker from Australia, who will be speaking on the topic adjusting to post-normal times immediately after the launching by the Prime Minister. We thank you to my friend Dr. Zauddin Sardar for arranging the lecture by Professor Mayo and for being kind enough to moderate the lecture. Last but not least, to all the IIM staff for contributing in one way or another to the success of today's event, especially our hard-working OCAP, Office for Communication, Advocacy and Promotion. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yang berbahagia Datuk Rector. It is now time to hear from our esteemed guest of honor. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri Anwar bin Ibrahim, Prime Minister of Malaysia, to deliver his officiating speech.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Alhamdulillah, nahmadu wa nusalli ala rasulil karim. Saudara Zamri Berkadir, Menteri Pendidikan Tinggi, Timbalan Menteri, Tan Sri Samsudin Osman, sahabat saya Saudara Osman Bakar, Rektor, dan dua tokoh yang terlibat secara langsung dengan upaya mereka menjayakan dua program dan projek utama, peluncuran buku Profesor Muhammad Tahir Masawi dan juga peluncuran International Institute of Future Studies Profesor Zauddin Sardar. Acara ini memang sangat bermakna kerana pertama ia berusaha untuk memperkenalkan, menghebahkan, mendorong kefahaman yang lebih mendalam tentang seorang filosof pemikir utama dunia Islam mutakhir ini, almarhum Malik Bennabi. Pemikiran beliau itu mencabar pemikiran konvensional, menghimbau ke depan bagaimana umat boleh bangkit dengan kekuatan baru, membina kekuatan dalaman yang selalu beliau ungkapkan sebagai inner struggle of conscience. Dan saya bermanfaat kerana saya banyak melontarkan idea-idea beliau sejak saya di ABIM lagi, Menteri Pendidikan, sehingga sekarang. Dan bila Saudara Osman singgung tentang seminar pada 1991, saya masih ingat karya beliau yang di antara yang utama, Wajhatul Alam Islami, yang diterjemah oleh Asma Rashid, Profesor Asma Rashid, yang kemudian menjadi salah satu teks penting dalam gerakan kita. Kemudian kita juga akan meluncurkan International Institute of Future Studies. Kita dalam keadaan umat dan negara kita di persimpangan, sama ada mengekalkan pemikiran kita dan ketergantungan kita dengan pola pemikiran sekarang, atau memberi ruang untuk pemikiran tentang apa yang disebut pengajian masa depan, future studies. Dan sebab itu saya mendukung usul ini supaya meletakkan dunia akademik kita, terutamanya IIUM, supaya sama bukan sahaja memanfaatkan daripada pemikiran semasa, tetapi memikirkan meneka masa depan yang terombang-ambing, yang tidak menentu. Cabaran persekitaran dan iklim yang berubah hebat dan kencang, geopolitik yang tidak menentu, politik yang sudah terhakis nilai kebenaran yang disebut post-truth. Ini semua harus difaham untuk memahami dunia yang mencabar, termasuk teknologi baru yang sukar diteka, seperti mana berlaku dengan penguasaan AI Amerika Syarikat dan penguasaan baru oleh kekuatan AI dari negara China. Jadi kita hadir di sini dalam acara yang sederhana. Terima kasih kepada Saudara Osman Bakar dan IIU, tetapi memberikan suatu dampak yang tinggi dari sudut dunia ilmu, memanfaatkan pemikir ulung yang berasal dari Algeria, dan juga memperkenalkan seperti mana atas usaha Menteri Zamri AI faculty, tapi di sini future studies, kerana ia memberikan asas bagi kita berfikir cara berani dan matang, dan tidak hanya melepaskan tanggungjawab kepada kalangan lain untuk menentukan. So may I take this opportunity again to express my profound thanks and gratitude to the university, and of course Professor Tahir, Seri, long-term friend, although we had deceived one another, but it's nice for Osman to recall the initial meeting that we had, because Malik Bennabi is not too well known outside the academia, which is unfortunate. I remember recently, I think the Qatar University organized another conference to promote its ideas. But what is exceptional to my mind is his Khaldunian understanding. Of course, he's essentially a great student of Ibn Khaldun, but his unique capacity in articulating issues, new challenges, geopolitical, colonialism, etc., but from a profound understanding, grasp of Islam and identity and values that must be part and parcel of the national struggle in Algeria, and of course for the Ummah. Therefore, it is with pride that I join you today in marking two important milestones: the launch of a Malik Bennabi reader and the establishment of the International Institute of Future Studies. Though distinct, they are connected by a commitment to intellectual renewal, critical inquiry, and the shaping of a just future. They are endeavors that embody the spirit of Malaysia Madani. And thank you, Osman, Zamri, Tahir, and of course, Zia. Now, the unveiling of this two-volume work on the ideas and thoughts of Malik Bennabi is a cause for great delight. Bennabi's moral and intellectual convictions have profoundly shaped my own perspectives. So thank you again, Tahir Musawi, for bringing this admirable book to fruition. This may well be the most elaborate or comprehensive exposition of Bennabi's thought to have graced the printed page. It is a work destined to be a cornerstone reference for many years to come. Bennabi's homeland, Algeria, paid a heavy price for its freedom. Stems from a country with 1.5 million martyrs. Yet his vision was never shackled to one land alone. He saw the struggles of Muslims across Asia and Africa as shared struggles. He spoke not just for them, but for all of humanity. The subtitle of this is A Muslim Visionary in the Whirlwind of Colonial Modernity, a succinct, evocative, and compelling encapsulation of Bennabi's intellectual and moral journey. Bennabi may have left us more than 50 years ago, yet his thoughts remain as timeless as they are profound. He sought to understand why some societies were vulnerable to domination while others thrive. I mean, this is essentially Khaldunian, about those subjugated. But from my initial readings, not to include your 2 volumes, to me that's a source of great strength, to give that push, that challenge to the Ummah, that you can only be truly independent and mature as a society and succeed as a nation if you can overcome that captive mind being encapsulated by the colonial view. But Bennabi, of course, understood that colonialism was not merely an external imposition. It was also an internal ailment made possible by the weaknesses within colonized societies. Those of us from this generation are familiar with the wretched of the earth or pedagogy of the oppressed, which essentially remain quite consistent with, partly with the ideas of Bennabi. I'm referring to Frantz Fanon, which I think Zia can explain better. Unfortunately, we have almost taken it for granted. But to describe this condition, which was coined the term by Malik Bennabi as colonoscibility. I mean, those of you in that Abim generation are very familiar. I've been, expounding this colonoscibility. I mean, the mentality that is submissive, prepared to be colonized. Colonial powers have gone. But those colonized mentality, or what Hussein Alatas referred to as the captive mind in development studies, is still prevalent. So domination, Bennabi argued, was not sustained by brute force alone. It was nourished by intellectual inertia, political stagnation, and social fragmentation. True liberation, then, was not simply about casting off foreign rule. It was about renewing the very foundations of society. Remember Muhammad al-Ghazali, Isti'amar, Ruhi wa Fikri, is essentially that. That's why I have remained steadfast in my view that unlike some others, Bennabi is not a recluse perched on the high tower of intellectual superiority, pontificating on what is, what ought to be. There is also no outward projection of excessive religiosity. On the contrary, spirituality energized from the wellsprings of his deep and profound inner faith. Bennabi has been able to wield his pen, undoubtedly mightier than the sword, in order to articulate his thoughts and beliefs with abiding courage of convictions. It is relentless and unwavering because it is the outcome of an inner struggle of conscience. Is of deep understanding and sense of conviction. Is not political rhetoric, intellectual gymnastics. It stems from probably what Hamlet cogitates, that conscience does make cowards of us all. Now, Bennabi embraces his fears with deep compunction. And from that platform of rectitude, reminds us that without the moral courage to grasp the guiding ideas of civilization. Now, guiding ideas, Mr. Seri, was one of the themes of my Habib speeches in the late 70s. We will be doomed if we repeat the errors, because then we'll be consigned to the dustbin of history. Thus, Bennabi called for a revival, not just in political terms, but in a deeper, more holistic sense, which I term is as Madani or script. To break free from the legacies of colonialism, societies had to dismantle the mindset of subjugation as much as the physical structures of imperial control. This meant rejecting the culture of empire and cultivating what he termed as culture of civilization. A beautiful French phrase that he used. I would dare try. That is rooted in the ethical and spiritual principles that define human dignity. Now, ethical, moral principles is a deficit in today's world, in politics, in business, in the academia. And Bennabi called for this revival in a holistic sense. Now, he is also able to see through the illusions piercing the rhetoric of progress. Remember, the rhetoric of progress and civilization that colonial powers wielded to justify their subjugation of others. He recognized how modern science and technology, forces meant to uplift humanity, had been perverted into instruments of domination. Now, nowhere is this clearer today than in Palestine, where the tiresome and mendacious claim of defending the only democracy in the Middle East is wielded as a shield to justify the dispossession of an entire people. Modern military technology, surveillance systems, modern bureaucratic state have been deployed in the service of murder and subjugation. Just as in the colonial past, power cloaks itself in the language of security and stability, when in truth it is entrenching displacement and genocide. For Bennabi, this revealed a great disparity or decalage. On one side stood human consciousness and moral conscience. This has to be fortified and strengthened. On the other, the unchecked, inexorable advance of science and technology. Modern societies have been endowed with tremendous power over the natural and human worlds, yet their ethical development has failed miserably to keep pace. This chasm, he warned, breeds dehumanization and imperils our collective future. Bennabi further argued that breaking free from colonialism was far from enough. The colonized had to reclaim their autonomy and rebuild their self-worth, eroded by decades of foreign rule. But the colonizers too had a duty to confront their own legacy, to relinquish the illusion of superiority, to dismantle the mindset that sanctions domination. Only then could the world bend history's arc towards justice. For Bennabi, true liberation was not merely political or economic. A society that grants political rights yet leaves its people in economic servitude is not truly free. Remember, Ramanan, what Ambedkar said: without social independence, social democracy, independence would be rendered meaningless. Nor is a society that ensures material security while suppressing intellectual and political freedom. Bennabi envisioned democracy as a synthesis where political and social democracy coalesce to ensure both liberty and dignity. This is the essence of Islamic democracy, or mushawara, of gotong royong, a system that frees people not only from external oppression, but from internal servitude. So, when the Quran declares that God does not change men's condition unless they change themselves, their inner selves, this is as much an injunction to bear responsibility for one's actions, and by extension into the arena of politics, clearly a commandment for accountability, without which democracy becomes a mere platitude. And so I have popularized not just democracy, Zamri, democratic accountability. You see, it's important for an UMNO leader to nod with me on this. Hence, our Madani framework of governance places paramount importance on democratic accountability. So, ladies and gentlemen, Bennabi understood that real change does not spring from grand ideas alone. It must begin at the level of the soul, where consciousness is transformed, where the individual rediscovers their worth, and where they become an agent of history rather than a bystander. Was it there? Yeah. It is in this spirit that we gather today, to honor Bennabi, to thank Professor Tahir, to reflect on Bennabi's legacy as captured in this new book, and to inaugurate an institution dedicated to equipping societies with the tools to shape the future rather than be shaped by it. Correct, yeah? I therefore commend IIUM on the establishment of the International Institute of Future Studies, and more profoundly by the presence of Professor Ziauddin Sadra to head this enterprise. A major challenge is a new adventure into the academia, and it actually challenged many of the normative beliefs, and therefore don't be too surprised if it is considered to be a rather contentious or controversial institute. And I wish the Minister of Higher Education well. Now, with sustained commitment, this institute can elevate IIUM's standing as a global leader in future studies and beyond. Now, finally, future studies is not a passing trend. It is a rigorous discipline whose importance grows with each passing year. And I believe again that with the stewardship of Professor Ziauddin Sadra, the Center for Postnormal Policy and Future Studies has played a leading role in developing futures literacy in Malaysia for the last many years. Now, the establishment of IFS marks a new phase in this effort. The insights of future studies, particularly Professor Sada's post-normal times theory, have already influenced policy frameworks such as script and Malaysia Madani. I hope this IIFS will build on this foundation, producing thinkers and policy makers ready to tackle challenges still beyond our horizon. My only appeal to get the rector to understand is to calm Professor Zia down, to understand and appreciate that change and understanding will take a little bit more time. So implore for his patience and understanding to ensure that this succeed. Now, intellectual endeavors, again, such as Malik Bennabi's reader and the establishment of IFS are stepping stones towards reviving the spirit of convivencia. That luminous era of knowledge and exchange that once defined Al-Andalus. It is my fervent hope that Malaysia too, inshallah, will embody this spirit, becoming a crucible of ideas, cultures, and wisdom. Today, as we launch both this book and this institute, we are not merely reflecting on history. We are taking responsibility for the future. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri. Please remain on stage for our next agenda. As we move forward, it is our honor to invite Datuk Seri Diraja Dr. Zamri Abdul Kadir, Tan Sri Samsudin Osman, Professor Emeritus Datuk Dr. Osman Bakar, Professor Dr. Muhammad El Tahir El Masawi, and Professor Dr. Ziauddin Sardar on stage for the official launching of the Malik Bennabi Reader and IIUM's new institute. To officially launch the book. We will now have a photography session with the book. All VIPs, kindly direct your attention to the camera. The departure of Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise.
Kesejahteraan masa depan.